An age ago, the beating heart of our people was a king who knew only victory. He wanted nothing more than an honorable death on the battlefield. Yet, none could match him, and so he wandered the earth, becoming lost in time and tide. Then we too lost our honest purpose, while silk-clad men sat upon the throne. But tremble now, all cities that lay under the stars, for out of the shadows and mists of the land of promise, our courage has been rekindled, our heart has returned, and the world will burn.
Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to Comic Book Team Up, where me and RJ talk about stuff. It's supposed to be a comic book show, but it very rarely ends up being a comic book show. RJ, your mic is off. So, first off, for plugs, we got Hero Tales number 1 and 2. You can pick up on Fun My Comic. That's my comic, and then you can go there and pre-order Crom the Destroyer from RJ. The last couple of pages are being drawn as we speak. And we'll say hello to Rex Blazer. Oh, I like that avatar. And spoke with John earlier. Thanks to him, I got another draft going. Oh, you're the guy I talked to earlier. How you doing? Yeah. How's it going? Everybody? RJ, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, it
now.
sounded like you were fighting with something. I was wondering if a bear wandered in.
Yeah. No, I was fighting with myself and this stupid computer. That's all I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Rex, do you mind if I won't say anything, but do you mind if I mention what we talked about? And what geeks do early? What geeks do? I can't speak anymore. What's up, fellas? How you doing? Are you getting this heat wave? It was like 80 something degrees today in New York.
It was about 70 here.
It was nice because I'm working in a building with barely any walls, but I don't know if anybody's ever dealt with cinder blocks. It traps in the cold, so it was surprisingly cool. It was a nice, pleasant day at work, even though I'm nearly 60 and I'm climbing through the rafters, running pipes in the ceiling. But I guess I got a couple of years left of climbing around like an idiot. 80 in Jersey, yeah. So Rex sent me a digital copy of his comic and asked for advice. And I said, do you want me to be brutally honest or whatever? He said, brutally honest. So I find, and again, Rex, I'm being as respectful as possible. A couple of people sent me scripts, and I'm an amateur. I got 2 comic books out, so feel free to rip my comics apart too. I feel brutal criticism, it can only help us. I got a couple of bad reviews, and I actually thought that the reviews were kind of helpful. But I thought Rex rushed through the story. I think it's something that a lot of people do. They want to get to the cool parts. They want to show, the space battles or whatever, the superhero punching the bad guys. But we don't care about that stuff if we don't care about the characters. So I like when we watch Willy Wonka, it's like 40 minutes of regular people. Like, we understand the importance of that golden ticket. So, tells like Peter Parker. We got to meet Peter Parker before he turned into Spider-Man. The Fantastic Four started out with them, fighting the Mole Man's monster, and then it went into explaining who they are. But that's what I feel. My first issue of Heroic Tales, my first draft was just the world and all the characters and this superhero team, and back and people like I don't care about any of this. I don't care. So I chipped it all away. I don't think I succeeded as well as I wanted to, but I focused in on one character. We'll learn the world as each issue comes out. So Rex, I hope I was helpful. I wasn't trying to be mean. And then I offered, when you write your script, I said, send me a script before you start drawing, So there you go. Heat wave. We got 2 inches of snow in this frozen hellscape. Where do you live? Also, when I did that take, I tried to follow some of RJ's advice. Well, that was your problem. That was your problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rex, just to let you know, I'm dealing with an editor now, a much more hands-on comic editor than I had for my first couple of books, because I too, like John, took some good constructive criticism from my first couple of books, and what I need is a comic book editor. So if anybody knows Joe from Michael Bancroft's show, used to be on there all the time a couple of years ago. So Joe is going to help me with the final edit for Crom the Destroyer, and that's what I think I need. I need a sober second thought on my script, so it doesn't crowd the panels and we don't have too many empty panels, all that kind of stuff,
And dialogue, I find dialogue is the hardest part.
Well, I love dialogue is the thing. I could just write dialogue. I could write. So that's what I do when I write my scripts, is if I ever get stuck, I will just write dialogue, and then I'll see if I can fit it in to the pages that I've actually I've earmarked for this chapter or this book or whatever else. I love writing dialogue.
I don't know. It's hard. That's the hardest part. But what I do is I write the script, send it to the artist, and then the artist, the colorist, and then when it comes back, I rewrite the script depending upon like what the artist does. Sometimes it's not exactly the script, so you got to change stuff. But that gives me time to think about the dialogue and everything, and then I do like a unfinished word balloons, and then I send that to my editor, and then my editor will give me a million corrections, and then Bill Williams will finalize the lettering. It's a process, but it's fun. My first comic, I didn't do any of that. I just wrote it. My artist drew it, and then and it reads like that. There's a couple of typos and everything, but we live and learn. Like Rex, if I and I'm not saying this to but like the second page, you introduced like the crew, but I didn't know anything about them. It was just a list of people. Like if you had said hairdryer, mechanic, frog, mosquito, like it would have been the same. Like it was just like it would have been neat to see them a couple of days beforehand, them meeting a party, or they're, who are these people? That's the way I felt. A lot of comments already. Geez, thank you everybody. Thank you. I love comments. Oh yeah, Ultra. Where are you that it's still frozen? We're in Alaska. Usually the late snow over here, but not today. I know it's supposed to get cold again this weekend. Everybody's saying hello. I like when people say. In my case, I'm both the writer and the artist. Yes, I wish I could draw. I find that to be like the purest comic books. Still, I'm in a transitional period with what art style And again, I'm like, all your angles were the same. You know, have an above view, have a below view. You know what I mean? Have these people talk and then rotate them and have them talk. You know, you got to make it visually interesting. Who's my editor? I sent it out to Ali Sanguilis. She charges cheap. She's fair. She's quick. You know, and she's a nitpick with typos, stuff like that. If you notice, I don't think there was any typos in the second issue. First issue, there's one right on the front page. My wife opened up the book and goes, "Oh, look, typo." But I didn't have an editor. I was arrogant enough to think I could do it myself. Yesterday, I read the Eternal one-shot for the 50th anniversary. It had 3 stories. All 3 were awful. Okay, the second was mildly okay. What is that? Is that a Marvel comic like the Eternals? Hello, everyone. How late am I? We just started. Incubus. We were waiting for you. RJ, Incubus is here. We can start now.
You know what I found today, John? Just Faz made me think of it, talking about the Eternals. As you know, because I was talking to you before, I was running around like crazy with a chicken with the head cut off today, and I don't like going into Walmart, but I had to go into Walmart, and something caught my eye. I found that they were selling the 3-bag comic stuff, and they're like, I don't know, it's like $4 or $5 or something like that. I can't remember, but they were Shang-Chi and stuff like that. I wasn't buying them because they're current Marvel comics. It's like, no wonder they're trying to get rid of them. Yeah, but at the very least, they are selling comics that way again. It's because
I listened to Chuck Dixon has the Ask Chuck Dixon. He releases them on Wednesdays, so I listened because I got an hour drive and an hour home, so it just makes my drive interesting. He talked a cool story about Stan Lee. But anyway, he talked about that, how people were sending him pictures of comic books in Walmart, and I forget, he said another store, and of course Ollie's. But that's a good sign. I mean, I'm sure it's Marvel just getting rid of dead stock or whatever, but still, it's a good sign. Get people interested in comics. Unfortunately, it's modern comics, but what can we do?
I think Walmart is your modern day equivalent of Kmart. So Kmart is where we used to get the Whitman 3-packs for mostly DC comics.
I remember those. Do you remember Power Comics with the record?
No, I don't remember that.
I had a Man-Thing, a Fantastic Four, and a Captain America, but I know there was others. I didn't have any of the DC stuff. Vaz says, in one of them he met Captain America, and Cap was making jokes like he was Peter Parker in a fight. No, that's not right. Captain America is not a quipper. Captain America is not a quipper. Marvel. Walmart sucks, but that's a good sign. Hail everyone. How you doing, Ben Savar? And I used to work for Walmart. How was it? How did you like working for Walmart? I was always curious. So, when I'm old and retired, I'll have to be one of those old guys. Hi. Unless you buy my comics. Mm-hmm. Oh, I know you have a topic, but I'll tell you about this. I have a new partner at work. It's construction. We always have different partners every couple of weeks. So I got a new partner at work, and she has a 21-year-old daughter, and she bought my comic. She bought issue 1 and issue 2, and she had a Batman shirt the day I met her. So I was like, "Oh, you're into comics, And yesterday I came in, gave her my comic, and she sent me a picture of her 21-year-old. She stole the comics and went into her room to read them. So she, took a picture of a kid. 21 is a kid as far as I'm concerned. Read my that was really cool. And she's like, "Oh, that is so interesting." So she wants to know what's going on. So we traded information. So when I got the 3rd issue, even if because we'll be on different jobs by then, keep in touch. So that was fun. Made my day. We need to get better writers without agendas on those. Yeah, absolutely. We got to get people who love comics. You want the movie deals, stuff like that. That's fine, but you're not going to get the movie deals through comics if you don't love comics. It's just not going to happen. I worked at the online grocery pickup department, and it stresses with people interrupting me to ask where stuff was, but I could handle it, to let me go because of nonsense. You engaging in nonsense, Rex? There shall be no nonsense in my store. Hello, gentlemen. Hello, Ryan Banks. How you doing? How's everybody? So, RJ, RJ always picks the topic. What do you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I was gonna want to talk about
Sorry
some about supernatural comics, more or less. I got a new page for Fade to Blue. I just shared the screen there, and it just made me think of some of the things that I wanted to do with Fade to Blue. I really like. I've been posting Spectre stuff on my X account and things like that. Phantom Stranger, Dead Man, those kinds of things for DC, and I find they get good traction. People really like that kind of supernatural stuff. So I was thinking, what are your thoughts on really good supernatural comics?
First, I want to point this out with Rex because I was talking about like how, a lot of his it's just from the same angle. Like, look at this. You see how we have an interesting panel? It's just the foot, like, so it's like a worm's eye view. We're looking at that shadowy creature in the darkness. The camera's low, just makes it interesting. And then that second panel, it's still low. I don't know if the next panel will be coming from above but you got to change the perspective every once in a while. It just makes it interesting. I really like that shadowy guy. He's like a mix between like a classic Casper ghost and the Shadow. Man, this is the same artist that was on with us, right?
Yeah, this is yeah. We worked on this. Well, he worked on it. Gave me some really good character designs for this, and we just come up with a couple of things because basically, so it's kind of like I wouldn't say. It's hard to say, but Logan's Run, where was there a television show for Logan's Run?
Yeah.
Besides the movie, it was a television show. Usually they would go into basically a new sphere every time, and there would be something new, right? So that's the kind of concept I have with Fade to Blue. It's the fact that not the first couple of issues until you get to about issue 3, but it's basically you walk through another door and he gets into another pocket universe where you have different kind of supernatural beings, but in my world they're not really supernatural. They're basically superhero like beings, but they are horror inspired and things like that. So that's where Fade to Blue goes. And there's a lot of, as I said, what was the name of the movie that I was talking about last week? That I based it off of. The guy, the father from Christmas Story, he played
the Night Stalker. Kolchak the
Night Stalker. Yeah, Kolchak the Night Stalker. I always forget the name of it because they're different names for every movie. But the first one was the Night Stalker. But yeah, right. he goes around and
I think there was 2 made-for-TV movies, and then there was a TV series.
Yes, and it's basically that kind of thing. It's almost like a X-Files sort of idea where you find yourself in a new place and there's a new weird danger, and normal person and mentality has to deal with it.
I gotta ask, are like the portals blue or something? Is that why it's Fade to Blue?
Fade to Blue. Well, you'll find out in the first couple of pages of Fade to Blue.
Don't spoil it if it's a spoiler. Yeah, because it's funny because we keep talking about how we have like similar things. So I'm wondering if we have a similar thing, we don't realize it. We're both going to release that comic on the same day and be like, oh, man, we just ripped each other off. Logan's Run television shows on YouTube. Not the best thing compared to the contemporary shows. Yep. And the Planet of the Apes television show wasn't that great. Yes, the Night Stalker inspired the X-Files. You're absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. What do we got here? Oh, look at that.
I just find, quite honestly, one of the reasons why I wanted to write Fade to Blue, well, because I found that artist and he's beautiful with black and white. So it just inspired me to write something of a genre period where black and white actually stands out. But if I need inspiration for a story, I just simply go back and look at old DC covers because they never really go where the cover is telling you in the inside.
No, not these old DCs. No.
You could see this Phantom Stranger or any of these covers and come up with your own story just automatically. It'll be 100% completely different and something just inspirational, but of its own.
I want to ask you a writing question because somebody asked me the other day, like, I can't write I'll think up a story and I'll struggle with it. And then if I think of the first page, like the opening scene, and then I'm like, okay, let me write the opening, and then I write the story. But if I only have an ending or a middle, I can't start writing. I have to have an opening scene. How do you feel about that?
Usually I find inspiration. That's actually something that is comparable to what I do, because usually I find inspiration in something, and then as you used to say on my channel a lot, what I would do is find a really good story that I thought ended poorly, and then I would write my own ending to it. And then, since my own ending would then start to take on a life of its own, I would move backwards from the ending, right the middle, and the beginning, and so the entire thing would become new.
Okay.
So it's a little bit similar to the way I do things. I don't mind starting from the middle and moving backwards.
I find, I'll have an ending of a story and a little bit of a middle, but I find and it's funny because I find the ending the ending is to be tough. The ending for me is always the hardest part. You know what I mean? Like you want it to pack a punch, leave the audience wanting more. But yeah, but I can't. I'll have it outlined. I'll have notes jotted, but I won't have any script written until I can picture the first page, because I'm too anal retentive. And I can't do any, like my work partner's like, we could do all of these, like we're putting up racks. We could put up this piece. I said, no, let's finish all of this right here and then move on over to here. I like the beginning, to set it up, finish it, move on, never have to touch it again. So I that's the way I am. So I can't write a story until I have the first scene pictured.
Funny, because the script that I'm working on right now is a new script, and basically I'm just got the bare bones of it down for the drama character. Basically her name is Drama. She's kind of like a typhoid Mary.
Oh, that's a good name.
So what I did was I came up with I ran across a really good idea, and I thought, okay, this is a really good heart for the story. And then I said, okay, but I want this to be a floppy, so I got 32 pages or however many pages let's see, whatever it is. I got 3 chapters of 8 pages each. Anyways, so once I lay out my number of pages, then I put in the couple of things that I've thought was cool and where they're going to be. And usually it's like 3-4 pages. That's it. And then I go back and I say, okay, I want something good. It's kind of like Jack Kirby way of thinking. I want something spectacular on every page. So I go looking for more inspiration, and I jot down notes from this, that, and the other things, stuff that are adjacent to it, until I have more notes than I can fit onto a page or into my book for something spectacular on every page. And that's, I break down the pages, and then once every page has basically a tag to it, I usually leave about 2 to 3 pages at the end of every chapter, just in case I run over and I need to, don't want to rush the story, like you said. And then when I get to the last chapter, last 8 pages of any book, what I do is when I'm about to write those, I write the very last page first, and then I move backwards to make sure that it's not crowded and it's not rushed, and then again right forward. So yeah, it's a process, and I love it.
Yeah, like I'll begin like the way I do it is like the top is all the directions for the writer. So like we're in a hospital room. It's 1958. The hospital's overlooking whatever, a nice field, and there's a cow, whatever. You know what I mean? So by the time I started writing dialogue, I already wrote like a paragraph to explain the panel, and then I just find it okay. So what would a person say in this? So like that's just the way to just set up the picture, set up the location, and then the people talking in that location. But dialogue, oh, I love that cover on the right is awesome with the snake. That is a great cover.
I find I have to stop myself getting bogged down in research, because it's like when I'm writing character descriptions, I, go basic outline of what they look like, what they wear, what their weapons are, if they have weapons, what their powers are, things like that. But if I like there's we'll say there's two major characters for drama. There's four characters in all that have some impact on the story. And as I was writing it, some of them used weapons and some of them didn't. And I started researching different kinds of weapons that I had in my head and see if I could come up with something similar. And I had to stop myself because there's like, this is so fun. Just, looking through ancient weapons and medieval weapons and oriental weapons and trying to figure out which one they could use and things like which one would be best for their character or their mentality. And stuff. I love doing stuff like that.
Yeah, that is fun. I don't even, it's not like I'm doing research per se, but like I'm always looking up weird stuff anyway. Like I'll be daydreaming, somebody will say something, and then I'll look it up at lunch, and then I'll bookmark or something, and then go back later, and then I'll come up with a story. You know what I mean? But maybe I'll look up, okay, what does a military uniform look like in that particular day and age, and things like that. But yeah, I find it's just like things just inspire me out of nowhere. Just a conversation. Yeah. And it's funny, your character drama, I just can't help but think it's like, is she based on everybody's ex-girlfriend?
Could be.
It's funny because I have a female character named Trauma, and her power is she could basically make you relive your past traumas. If you ever had the D&D Deities and Demigods, there was Loviatar, the goddess of pain, and she could just make you take damage based on past attacks. So I kind of turned her into a supervillain because she's got to be a supervillain named Trauma. I love. Oh, I wanted to ask you now. So you talk about supernatural. So you're gonna have supernatural characters in your book. Do you have like a Bible of supernature, like the rules for vampires and werewolves and ghosts and stuff like that, or you just
well, see, that's the fun thing. The fun thing about my you'll see some of it in Crom the Destroyer, and we've already seen some of it in Thomas Valiant #1 is because Disc opens up portals, right? And she was driven mad. Partly, there was a little discussion between her and Pulse, basically saying if you pass through the portal, you get mangled, and if you survive, your mind gets destroyed. So there was a little discussion of it in the first books, and then when you get into the Crom the Destroyer, you get to see a little bit more of that. And when you get into Fade to Blue, it's going to be full bore. Basically going through portals, and he's tracking down portals and all this kind of thing. So the thing is that you get beings of power. So in the normal world where you have Thomas Valiant, you have beings of power, they're super beings. But the thing being that there is a different way power reacts depending on which pocket universe that you're in. So that's kind of the opposite of what you're just saying. I don't have one standard for everybody. It's that when you go into or through a portal, which are basically Celtic otherworlds, if you're into Celtic mythology, your powers could manifest in a completely different way.
Well, that's kind of a rule, you have different, because I hate to say multiverse because that's such a poor word these days, but I have, other dimensions that you could go to, other planes of existence, and the rules of physics. This one, so if we're 0 and you go over to 1, it's slightly different. And if you go to -1, it's slightly different. But if you go to 462, it'll be very different, if that makes sense. So there can never be another patriarch because the rules of physics are slightly different. It'll never replicate. Plus, I hate that. I hate that you have copies. It's such a bad trope these days.
No, I completely understand that. That makes a lot of sense. It kind of sounds like a little bit like Justice Machine. They were from different universe, were they not?
Yeah, they occupied the same space on Earth, but so it was an alternate Earth, but it had a different name, a different history. Even the continents were different. So when they transferred to Earth, they really didn't transport through space. They transferred through dimensions. But that worked. That was a complete. That would be like how I would envision my multiverse. So you can go to other universes, but you're never going to see. This is the patriarch with the goatee, and he's the evil one. You know, what would the
It's
evil?
funny because some of these books that we're looking at here are stuff off of them, especially the DC ones. They were what sort of gave me a little bit of inspiration for Fate to Blue and the way that I deal with the portals and the Celtic Otherworlds is because you would get, you know, every dozen issues or so in a Superman comic, he goes into, you know, he goes underground and all of a sudden there's a hidden city, or there's something like that. There's supposed to be a complete different ancient city underneath Metropolis for this one comic book, right? And things like that.
Yeah, there was no continuity back then. I remember that. Yeah, oh, there's a big old city down there. Well, how? You know, how did it get there? There's no air vents or anything like that. I know we're not supposed to think like that in comic books, but I can't help it. And we got Brian Christou in the chat. Brian is the author of Six Gun Gorilla. I absolutely love that comic. Brian and I both tell each other the same story, RJ. I'm sure you could relate. He sent me his comic, and I just was like, I don't want to read this. What if it's bad? What if it's bad? Then I'm going to hurt Brian's feelings. And he said he had my comic, and he was just like, what if it's bad? You know what I mean? But I got to say, I couldn't. I'm a slow reader, and it was like a 6-issue trade paperback, and I read it in one sitting. It was really, really good, to the point I wrote a story, and I asked him if I could do like an Easter egg with him. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean our worlds are linked. It's just I liked Brian's story so much I wanted, and I had an opportunity, so why not make a little Easter egg? Do you think it's possible to do a kind of same universe? It's possible. That's up to you. You know what I mean? I'm not telling you the rules. I just think it's been done before. You know, like, oh, this is the evil universe. But if you want to do it, man, do what you want. You know, I'm not anybody's boss. RJ doesn't even listen to me. You know, I keep telling him to write me a check for $1,000. He won't do it. You know, but you know what I mean. Do whatever you want, but be prepared for people to be like, oh, that, you know, if you're gonna use tropes, if you're gonna use, you know, whatever, then, you know, if I'm gonna have like lady patriarch and patriarch boy and patriarch girl, you know what I mean? Like somebody's gonna say something. So make it really good. You know, or you know, get some thick skin. Me, I wouldn't do a mirror universe. I just find it's been done before, and then I think it'll turn lazy. You know, then you get back. I'm gonna kill the patriarch. Oh, he's back from Universe 7. We got Plaything over here. Fill a thing. Oh, geez, I can't. Hello, all. Yep, facts.
It's funny you should say about the tropes thing, John. I don't know if I mentioned this to you before or not, but I was surprised to see someone pointed out to me that there is a website called TV Tropes, and they don't just do TV, but my book, Thomas Valiant, and the Thomas Valiant characters suddenly appeared on the has its own subsection under tvtropes.com. I think it is, basically because I use so many tropes. In Thomas Valiant and with my characters. I started out that way because, again, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to, you know, have everybody familiar with. So
you collaborated with them, or they just found you out and put it?
No, they just found me out. Someone, either someone pointed it out to them, or someone on their staff read my book or something. But yeah, it's.
Like, was it flattering, or is it like, this is an example of what not to do, you know, or is it, you know?
No, it just basically gives you a list of tropes that basically I'm going through the page right here. Comic provides examples of the city. Let's see. I don't know. It just gives you a list of tropes, which basically that you would normally see in mostly television, and it lists the tropes that you would normally think of as something to appear in similar like stories. And then, you know, it's not flattery, it's not even any kind of criticism. It's just a list, basically.
Oh, cool. I wonder what this backstory to that is. That's kind of interesting. Unicorn Ultra Quiz says, there's an element I kind of miss about old pulps and comics. You could take a wrong turn in a suburb and discover a lost civilization. RJ, I gotta say, I'm fascinated by the whole concept of like the whole town is against us kind of towns. You know what I mean? like you break down, you go in someplace and you turn into a town, and they don't like those damn outsiders. I think that is just a great scenario. Turn them into lizard people or Innsmouth fish people. You got yourself a horror story. Naturally, smoking hot babe in need of rescue. Yeah. Otherwise, just drive through it then if there's not a hot babe.
Where I live right now, John, I live on an island, and the thing is that it's kind of like that here, in the fact that if you weren't born on this island, doesn't matter how long you lived here, doesn't matter how long you've stayed here, you're always from somewhere else. You always get labeled from somewhere else, right? Yeah, you're never part of the actual people who live on the island, even if you've been here for 50 years, because you weren't born here.
RJ's out there like that hobbit, that stared at Gandalf, at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring. We don't take kindly to new folk out here. Usually multiverse words are dystopias. They rarely show utopia. Yeah, it's funny. My college friend Joanne, she tried to write a novel about a utopia, and she goes, "And against my will, it kept turning into a dystopia." I said, "Well, first off, writing about a utopia, where's the tension? Where's the drama? That's not a novel. That's just what is it, like a travel brochure?" But she was just like, she goes, "I don't think the human mind could deal with like a utopia. Maybe, but like if you have a utopia, what's the story? Like little Billy made the sandcastle. You know what I mean? Like you need some sort of trouble." So I think it always turns into a dystopia. The Justice Machine was revealed to come from 500 years in the future. They exist in the same universe. It's been so long. Maybe. There were time travels. Yeah, I don't remember, but I'll take your word for it because I can't remember anything anymore. I think most modern writers wouldn't know how to write a utopia. Yeah, because they would make it all communists and stuff, and that's a dystopia by definition.
The only good utopia book would be Thomas More.
Oh yeah, I never read that. That's a utopia.
He basically, that's the name of the book, Utopia.
In Burroughs' universe, no matter where you went, there was a nearly naked princess. You would need to say, yeah, that's why we all love those books, and the degree of nakedness was tied to how much we wanted to save her. That woman down the road in the parka, she could go F herself, but that girl with the harness on, we're saving her. You see this girl right here with the translucent dress, we'd save her unless girl with less lingerie showed up, then she would get saved. Actually, thanks to RJ and Eric July, as well as the influx of recent years, I'm kind of avoiding multiverses. That, like I said, like the multiverse, it's just like, oh, the evil version of this. It's like, I remember when Crisis on Infinite Earths was DC getting rid of all the multiverses because it was too confusing. Now your grandmother understands the concept of the multiverse. Like once your grandmother knows about it, find another trope. I like multiverses. They don't bother me. What bothers me is when they use them for race swaps, gender swaps, sexual. Yeah, there you go. That's usually what it comes down to.
The only proper use is to take a very beautiful character that you have and turn her into someone wearing less clothes. That's the only time.
There you go. Go to RJ's books where there's the naked verse. Aren't some of those covers against the comic code? Apparently not, because they got the comics code up there. These are 15 cents. So these are from the early 70s. Yeah, that one right there on the right. I think if it was, you see how her lower body's in black. I think if they colored it in flesh tones, that might have been on the cover. I think that would have been a problem.
Comics Code was much more focused on the storytelling than the art, quite honestly. And so they didn't care so much about the covers as far as I have.
Well,
read.
you couldn't have like torture to the eye.
Yes. Yeah. Those things.
You couldn't over exaggerate a woman's chest or stuff like that. And obviously nudity.
Yeah,
But
but
yeah.
there were certain, let's say, they would look at a piece of art for the cover and they would tell you yes, no, yes, no. But if you're going to the story, there's preset things you could do and couldn't do. There's a list of things that you could not have. And so when you open up these stories, that's why you're going to see um, basically your mind is taken in one direction by the art for the cover, and then you go with something else in the inside. That's one of the reasons why that happened for so many of these books, is because they're working within a lot of things that they could not do. So basically at this time, could not have zombies. That was you couldn't be comic code. You couldn't have werewolves. That wasn't in comic code. I'm not, just little things like this over and over again that you had to work around. And that's why we got a whole lot of really interesting characters. The early Swamp Thing had these well, I don't know what they're called, but they were zombie-like creatures, but they weren't zombies. And then you got Tigra.
The
Yeah.
Onion, yeah.
And then you got Tigra because she wasn't exactly a werewolf, things like that.
Yeah, and that's why Morbius was the living vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it always bothered me, the word zombie. I was like, just say zombie, Oh, there you go. There's a touch of purple. She's going through a purple gate right there. End up in kind of RJ's universe. I always like the Stranger, but what could he do? What were his powers? He stood there and judged you.
I posted, what is it? It was probably a week ago or 2 weeks ago, but one of the things I hadn't really thought of this until now, but I'm sure this probably had influenced me greatly, is the fact that, again, I grew up playing the Ultima games, and in the Ultima games, there's moon gates. So basically they're just teleportation portals that open according to the phases of the moon that could take you from one place to another.
Oh, that's cool. I like that idea. Tying it to the phases of the moon. Incubus says a good way to use a multiverse is to make every alternate universe so unique that every universe is individual with that's what I'm doing. It's literally what I'm doing. Like I said, I'm inspired by D&D. My comic books are superheroes plus Dungeons Dragons plus Lovecraft. So the idea of all the way over here is ultimate chaos, all the way over here is ultimate loss. So the more you get towards chaos, magic is easier. The laws of physics are inconsistent, so science will break down. The more you get over here, magic is difficult, and the laws of physics become so oppressive that nothing ever changes. And you need to break down molecules for oxygen and for energies. So at the far ends extremes, no life exists. So that we're in the Goldilocks spot, things like that. So over here, it's slightly different rules of physics. Because
here we have a future picture of John coming to visit me.
There we go. Yeah, freezing,
getting stuck in the ice.
Yeah, getting stuck in the ice, getting judged by the people on by your tribal. What do you live on? Sentinel Island. You know what that is by India?
Sentinel Island. No, I don't. Off the top of my head.
That's the island. The Indian government protects it. Nobody's allowed to bother them. Like they're like an uncontacted species. We don't know the species. They're humans, but we don't know exactly how many people live there. And if you land on their island, they kill you. They come out with sticks and bows and arrows. So we just leave them alone. They estimate there's between 150 and 200 people. And they had no contact with us. We could go there, probably kill them all with the disease. So that's where RJ lives. He's the only person there with an internet. Some missionary went there. I'm going to convert them all, and you see them all coming up to him, and then they killed him, and we never saw him again.
I love this cover here. It's just
that's a good cover.
Yeah, it's a good cover, and that's the way they did old, beautiful women. Again, here John had hit the nail on the head. Make them white or black, completely one color, and then you don't get to see what is skin color and what's not.
Right. That's a little too suggestive, I think. Look at it. Look at the guy in the wheelchair there. What is that second one?
It's the Iron Messiah. The guy with an afro. He looks like a skeleton, but it's all iron.
That's yeah. He's like yeah, that's pretty cool looking actually. I wonder, did Neil Adams draw that?
Yeah, it's Neil Adams cover.
Look at that. Yeah, look at that. Cool. The image
Again, yeah, all
wax.
you gotta do is look at some of these covers, and all of a sudden you got yourself a story.
So even if you have Divergence Earth, there are no parallel characters, no yeah, exactly. I agree with you 100%, Incubus. Oh, look at that. The Spectre of the Stalking Swamp. This girl is like, okay, we'll finally go all the way, Brad. And Brad's just like, what the? Oh, look at that kid. Look at the wrinkles in that kid's clothes. Is that also Neil Adams?
Yeah, it's Neil Adams. Yeah.
Yeah, Neil Adams is like one of the few artists that could draw a child that actually like looks like a child. You know, we're not seeing his face, but that's a child's body. That's really good. Oh, look, I didn't even realize that the computer screen has the Phantom Stranger's face.
Yeah, Phantom Stranger's always got to be there somewhere.
Yeah.
I was going to one of the things. Let's take this off here for a second. One of the things that I always found interesting for talking about supernatural stuff is the fact that I know that what's his name? Jim Shooter really hated this, but is the fact that Superman's weakness, of course, is magic.
Right.
And there was some of those covers. I can't remember. There's one that I can't find off the top of my head. I don't remember what it was, but it's basically Superman being mauled by Dracula and Frankenstein.
Right.
And I always thought that looks like such a beautiful cover. This is going to be a great book. And then I would, open it up and it's old DC. So
I'm gonna get super nerdy right here. Superman isn't magic isn't his weakness. It's just that his powers don't protect him against magic. So magic treats Superman the same way magic would treat me. It's like saying that human beings' weakness is suffocation. You know what I mean? It's just we need air. Like so like Superman is invulnerable to everything, but he's normal to magic. So if he was vulnerable to magic, he would be more susceptible to magic. Does that make sense?
true.
That's like super autistic, nerdy stuff. But we had a fun argument with somebody. I was like, no, Superman's not weak to magic. It's not like you take out a magic wand and he collapses. He's just like a normal. His powers don't resist magic, so he's weak.
I think we lost John, or maybe John lost me, one or the other.
Oh yeah, it circled for a second. So I'm just being pedantic about the magic. Do you want to ask a random Marvel question? Sure, it's a comic book show. Despite what me derailing it all the time, go ahead, and I'll bring that up. Between the Hulk, Colossus, and the Thing, and Luke Cage, who do you think has the toughest skin? Well, Luke Cage has the steel hard skin, so I'd say it's as strong as steel. Colossus has steel skin, and the Thing has the rock. But I would say the Hulk is he maybe weaker than all, but as he gets more rage induced, he gets more and more invulnerable. So like the Hulk has a range. The Thing I think would be the least, but to me, like his grows back. Like I've seen him like lose pellets or whatever you want, and then like it grows back after a while. So that's just my. I haven't really given it good thought. RJ, do you disagree or agree?
I don't know. It's a hard question. Again, I would say the Hulk, but you're right, because there's different degrees to which his skin would become invulnerable. And, I'm trying to think of the fact that because Wolverine can stab his adamantium through the Hulk. That's something that he did once in a while, but I can't remember if he ever actually, within an alternate or story, actually was able to penetrate Colossus or even tried to. It's one of the fun things about the the Magic miniseries is that's basically Limbo, where the X-Men came in from an alternate universe, and Colossus died in that version of the universe, and the only thing left of him is his skin.
Yeah, and if you remember, Sim broke Wolverine's claw and threw it through Colossus. So is it because of Sim's strength, or is it because of Wolverine? And remember, Wolverine slashed the thing's face and left him scarred for a long time.
Right.
The only one I've never seen actually bleed was Luke Cage. The Hulk's anger is also a weakness, since anger tires you out, so he'd lose the invulnerability once he starts to calm down. Yeah. It always bothered me to see Hulk sleeping. Like, to me, once Hulk fell asleep, he should turn into Banner. It's hard to be super enraged while you're sleeping. Superman should only be vulnerable to telepathic attacks, telekinetic attacks, and magical reality warping. But the only physical attack that should affect him is disintegration from teleportation. Like telekinesis, to me, Superman would resist it because it's just physical force. Without it's same as being hit by a stick or pulled by a hand. Just it's moving molecules. You know what I mean? And Superman's molecules either have, if you're John Byrne, he has this intrinsic force field, or if he's just super tough. This is the super nitpicky stuff I absolutely love. I could talk about this stuff all night. I think in Wolverine's first appearance, he couldn't cut the Hulk, but they changed that later. Yeah, well, remember in his first appearance, the Hulk was all amped up because he just finished fighting Wendigo. You know what I mean? So maybe the Hulk was at a super high level. You know what I mean? If he had just trans into the Hulk, maybe he could have cut him. There's Destiny. Who is that? That's Lois Lane. Looks like the guy's doing welding on her boobies. Getting her out of her iron brassiere.
It's funny. I pulled this up because I was thinking that it's a supernatural issue, one on the left, but it's not actually. He basically can't, spoilers for everybody. He basically can't touch this guy because he is a Green Lantern, if I remember correctly, and then reveals that in the last page.
Oh, okay.
I just ruined the book for John.
Okay. What issue is that? Yeah. That's before my time. I don't have that. I used to avoid all of those Silver Age Supermans. Now I think they're kind of charming. If there's a couple of retro places by me, and they just have boxes of comics that people sell them. And they sell lots of them for like $1. And I'll just scoop up any old Silver Age DCs, because for the most part, I got most of the Silver Age Marvel comics, but I don't have a lot of Silver Age DC. I avoided them. The Thing should be the most invulnerable because his power source is cosmic energy. The Hulk should be the second because his power source. Those are the rules in your universe. You could, but I think just be consistent. Like if you have a bunch, you create your superheroes, and if you decide that cosmic energy is more powerful, and as long as you're consistent, that's cool. I kind of like that kind of stuff. So you made that rule, then you stick to it. And then this superhero was created by this energy. This energy is not on the same level as that's kind of fun. But the thing is about Marvel is, I'm sure Stan Lee would have, or Jack Kirby would have kept a record, but I don't think the people nowadays care enough or even read the old stuff. Oh, I saw on Twitter today that somebody said that old Silver Age comics are too difficult for children to read. I think I already know what RJ's going to say, but chat, RJ, what do you guys think about that comment?
I think that children used to read a lot more difficult things than comic books.
Absolutely. If your kid can't read, if your 10-year-old, 9-year-old can't read a Silver Age DC comic, they're bad readers. They're literally a whole industry was propped up by 10 and under reading comics, and looking up a word if they couldn't figure it out, or figuring it out through context. I was just like, this person has no idea what they're talking about. Luke Cage only has steel hard skin, but his tissues and bones are not as durable. They're super durable and they feel, but his skin is like titanium alloy. Okay. So could you hit Luke Cage with a sledgehammer, and then like the energy transmit through and bruise his internal organs? Like, do you ever hear about like those mafia people? They would hit people with phone books because it wouldn't bruise the skin, but it would rupture the internal organs. So the people, like, they didn't show any signs of being beat up. Little brutal mafia stuff. I got Sicilian Family. What do you want me to say? Oh, there you
There's
go.
the cover. Yeah, there's the cover I was talking about.
Yeah. Superman's awkward pose. Superman. That bothers me. Why is there an exclamation point first? Oh, because it's backwards. Okay, the most mind-shattering Superman story ever told, when time went backwards. Okay, all right. Rex Blazer said, one idea I had is that special abilities come from the eye. Eye lasers, metal skin, sonic screen, body morphing come with trade-offs. Okay, that sounds good. So if you have like laser eyes, you're blind while you're firing. You know what I mean? If you have steel hard skin, maybe you have no feeling. And if you have no feelings, would you, like, to me, like, if you had no feeling, like, would you be fat? Because I imagine taste, you know, if your skin is super hard, could you taste stuff? And if that's your only sensation, don't you think you would indulge? That's, I don't know, weird kind of stuff that I think of. What else you got? You got any?
I'm looking for some Spectre covers. Is what I'm looking for.
Okay. So, like, have you always had a fascination with the character of the Spectre, or are you just working on something right now that makes you think of the Spectre?
Again, I always had a fascination with DC characters because of the fact that the comics were not as good as the covers. So again, I always loved looking at the covers because my brother used to have a lot of comics before, you know, I got into comics. Well, they were always there around for me, and there was a lot of DC stuff, and DC was always around, especially it was kind of like for most people how Archie would be. That's how DC comics were for me. They were always around, they were everywhere, and they were the ones that, you know, everybody just threw in the corner and that kind of thing. But I just look at the covers and am able to write an entirely new story. And Phantom Stranger and Spectre are two characters that specifically I always go towards in order to do that. But if I'm going towards a supernatural character that I would have read a lot of, would have been, of course, Doctor Strange. After when the Doctor Strange second edition, I guess it was, second volume came out, I bought all of those from issue number 1, and any Dr. Fate, things like that, after the mini series with Walter Simonson and Keith Giffen, who did issue 1, 2, 3. After that, I always bought Dr. Fate. So I don't think that Spectre besides Phantom Stranger and that beautiful Secret Origin book, where it gives them 3 different origins, one of them being Cardophilus, that I love that book too. But Spectre was one of those characters that always from Earth B, basically from the All-Star Squadron, and just never really clicked for me until I saw books that were way too old for me that I had never actually seen before.
The Spectre, I mean, my favorite single story with the Spectre is Swamp Thing. I think it's Swamp Thing 50, with the all the magical beings and John Constantine all team up. That I love that freaking comic. I know it's Alan Moore, so you don't like it, but besides that, I like the Spectre when he's just basically ghost superhero. He's not this all powerful being. I just find that is such a cool idea, like a regular guy who's dead, and then he just drops his facade and becomes just a ghost and solves crime. That I really, really like. This more limited the better. I talk about it all the time. I like superheroes with like lots of weaknesses. Speaking of a lot of weaknesses, what do you say, Rex, over here? Laser eyes can cause permanent blindness. Metal skin can turn you into a living statue. That's a horror. Sonic scream can cause rupture of vocal cords, render you mute. Okay. Yeah, that's what happened to Banshee, right? He screamed so hard fighting Moses Magnum that he lost his powers for a couple of years. A special high-tech surgical laser has been used to do emergency surgery on Cage. The subatomic particle beam is the same one used to cut adamantium. Yeah, you know what's funny is in my role-playing game, a character had invulnerability, meaning he's just like he would ignore damage every turn. And then finally he fought somebody who's so powerful that he bypassed the invulnerability and did damage to it. And then I have a critical hit system, and he required surgery, and no surgeon could do the surgery. So he had to find like a magician to heal him, or he would have slowly died. But it was just like his cool power became kind of a curse. And you remember when Superman got shot by kryptonite bullets? The doctor had to expose Superman to kryptonite to soften the skin so he could remove the bullets. I thought that was John Byrne. That was the Bloodshot issue, if I remember correctly. Eric the Guapo's here. Eric, where have you been? Seems like you've been missing for a while. I hope everything's all right. Zach Tan with the blessing. Thank you, Zach Tan. Supernatural and horror go hand in hand. Absolutely. Even if it is necessarily a horror story, do you think that some element of horror needs to be preserved to maintain the feeling of the unknown? What do you think, RJ? I don't know how to answer this.
There's a lot of horror stories. Well, you got things which are basically horror porn now. I don't watch those things. I don't like that
What do you
kind
mean,
of stuff.
like gore, just over the top?
Yeah, well, like what was the first one? The Saw movies, basically, right?
Oh, yeah.
And things like that. I don't consider those horror. I really don't. I think when they say, I hate using the term, but when they say horror porn, I think it's more the second rather than the first, because it just shows everything, right? So that's basically from the Greek. But yeah, I like horror stories, or like I always say, the best horror story I've ever read was not a horror story at all. It's a Conan story. The Red Citadel, I think it is, and it is the most horrific thing for a horror story, and most of it is because he's going into this darkness. He's literally creeping along with no light whatsoever at some point, going downwards and downwards into almost a hell. I think it is hell, and he feels things rather than sees them. So there is a lot of different kinds of descriptions that are more than something you would just see. And that's partly why I don't think you can ever do it as a visual unless you change the story completely. But yeah, the unknown is definitely, in my books, a necessity. That's one of the reasons why, again, when I started my channel, a lot of people used to send me horror comics, say, can you give me your interpretation of this? Is it any good? And I'm like, this is not the kind of horror that I usually read.
That's Lovecraft's famous quote. There is no greater fear than the fear of the unknown. Yeah, nothing's scarier than the unknown. Like I still will wade out into the ocean, and I'm at the beach, and there's a million people around, and all of a sudden I'm just like, I can't see, there could be a drop right here. There could be a freaking horseshoe crab. I'm terrified of horseshoe crabs, it could be, you know what I mean? And then I start psyching myself out. And why? It's just because I can't see into the water, that
same with me, John. I take the mentality of, what's his name? Sheriff Brody from Jaws. It's not an island if you look at it from the land, right? That's why I'm on an island, but I don't like the water. I'm with you. I'll go in the water, but as soon as it gets to a point where I can't see what's underneath there, nope, turn around. Everybody keeps on asking me, yeah, come out in our boat and we can go swimming and stuff like that. I'm thinking, no, you go out in the middle of nowhere and you jump off the boat and go swimming. I ain't doing that. No way. Especially after, a bunch of them drinking like crazy. So yeah, no.
And especially after I saw that documentary about the shark that went up the river and was killing people in like a creek, like the last.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I'm like, that could be like. There's never a possibility of zero. There could be a shark in here. I
think the farthest inland they've ever found a shark was almost in Minnesota, because it was going all the way up the tributaries from the Mississippi River.
Yeah. Vaz says, not related to supernatural stuff, but I read Savage Sword of Conan 85-93 this week. It was the supposedly awaited Michael Fleischer run. I didn't like his writing. I will say that I haven't read the Conan. I read Savage Sword of Conan 1 and 2. That's as far as I've gotten, and I'm up to like 18 of the regular Marvel comic. But I read Michael Fleischer's Jonah Hex, and he is amazing. I cannot recommend it enough. So I'll let you know when I get to those Conans. There was a bunch of stories where the villain kept coming back after apparently being killed at the end of the previous story. Yeah, I don't like that. If people keep coming back from the dead, then I don't know. I mean, unless it's a story about a necromancer or your name is Phoenix, dead should be dead. The pirate ship captain, Captain Borak Sharak, that got his head cut off by Conan, replaced it with the harpoon shooter. Everything is good, more responsibilities at work, less free time. Tell me about it. Yeah, it's good to see you. You were always there, and then I haven't seen you for a while. There's a question: do ghosts qualify as monsters? I don't think they do. Right? Well,
I would say yes.
You say yes?
Yes, I'd say yes.
Yeah.
Because again, I would say yes because of the unknown quality. It's like a spiritual unknown quality to it.
Yeah, a monster is anything like I would consider a gargoyle a monster, even though in my world a gargoyle is a good thing. It's about protection. It's only ugly to scare away demons and stuff. But like, Ted Bundy was a monster, so like, yeah, why not? Even Casper the Friendly Ghost could be considered a monster. A good dragon could be a monster, but that's up to you. Rex, these are the rules that you need to come up with, and but just be consistent. My favorite kind of stories.
If you're going back to like word origin, if I remember correctly, the monster is derived from the Latin, which basically it has a weird origin. Is because it's more to show, and it's basically a very focused showing of something that you normally wouldn't get in that much. So an evil, basically, or a vice that is concentrated in one area so intensely that you get to see just that. So that was the basic origin, like word wise, for monster.
Yeah, I'm looking it up now, but yes, it has a cool etymology. Yeah, I'm looking it up now. Oh, I just typed it wrong, so it's going to give me some nonsense. My favorite kind of horror story is the one that has creatures or psycho killers. In movies, my favorite kinds of horror are creatures, features, and slashers. Yeah. So the word monster entered English in the early 14th century as monstre, meaning malformed animal or human. And Latin monstrum. Yeah, divine omen, portent, or sign. That's right. Yes, I knew it had something to do with divinity. Yeah, and the root verb monstrum derives from the Latin verb monere, meaning to warn, to remind, to admonish, or to instruct. So when you saw a monster, a deformed animal or a deformed purpose, it was the gods telling you something bad is about to happen. That's pretty creepy. Do you remember the story where the Joker met Ayatollah Khomeini? Yeah, that was the death in the family. I hate that story. And Jim Starlin wrote it. Sea monsters are favorite kinds of creatures. Yeah, terrifying. You can have them. They're all yours. Horseshoe crabs are monsters. I like octopus, though. I got to admit, I do like octopus. Sharknado is based on real events. There was a tornado that sucked up fish out of a lake and dropped the fish. It rained fish. I don't know if they rained sharks, but how terrifying would that be? The old Savage Sword, the magazine ones. That's what Chuck Dixon did like 50 or 60. Oh, I love that issue of Swamp Thing. I'm also getting more involved in my faith, so my time is being... Well, that's good. My wife is at a Bible study right now. Supernatural monsters are the best monsters. Demons, vampires, werewolves, zombies. Yeah, the classic ones. Aliens and mutants are the best science fiction. Yeah, I kind of agree. Aliens and mutants are the best science fiction monsters. And the supernatural monsters, nothing beats those universal monsters. Oh, RJ, it's funny. Do you listen to the Chuck Dixon Ask Chuck Dixon on Wednesdays?
I haven't listened to it in a long time.
But today somebody asked him about his faith. Chuck Dixon referred to himself as a lapsed Catholic a few times, and he said he fell out of the Catholic Church. He goes, when the priest started playing guitar. He goes, so it was in the 60s, the folk masses. He goes, I like my mysterious, old, with ritual. And he goes, but once they started playing guitar and trying to relate to us, he goes, nope. And the funny thing is, my father said the same thing. Like, we would go to church every once in a while, and because of whatever, we had to go at a certain time, the 10:30 mass, that was the folk mass. My father would just shake his head, and he would just go, John, it's the folk mass.
Where does Chuck live? Where's the general? What state does Chuck live
in? He lives in Florida.
Lives in Florida? Okay.
But this was Pennsylvania. He lived outside of Philadelphia when he was a kid. That's what
I'm just thinking he could get to a good Latin mass right now. Probably in Florida, you're going to have a bunch of them just because of all of the Latin speakers there. So, Latin-based speakers for Spanish.
I'm pretty much a lapsed Catholic, and I'm nostalgic for the Catholic mass. And there's a church within walking distance that my wife's like, let's go. She goes to like some non-denominational church. They're really nice. I went a few times just because I was like, I don't want her getting involved in a cult, but they're not a cult. They're legit. And but I kind of want to go back to the Catholic mass. But you know what? Now that you planted the idea, man, I want to find out if there's a Latin mass anywhere near me.
Oh yeah, you're in New York. There's plenty, John.
Yeah,
I can tell you right now.
I never went to a Latin mass.
It's very quiet.
Ghosts are the spirits of dead people, but evil spirits can be something that isn't human at all. Yeah, in my world, there's spirits, and vampires are spirits, and they inhabit corpses. They're terrifying. Vampires should be scary. And if a vampire wants to appear as a normal human, it's got to drink a lot of blood and use that blood to repair the damage that's been done to the body. And after a while, the body decays because it's constantly decaying. So they constantly need blood to repair the damage. But after a while, that body is just beyond repair, and they abandon it, and the spirit will go into another body. So they're constantly looking for fresh bodies because those are easier to repair. But then there's spirits that don't. And a ghost would be a spirit that's trapped in a location. They're not necessarily good. They're not bad. It's like a person who's looking for their dog. They kind of do. They're almost like automatons in my world. But I literally have rules and lists of all the supernatural monsters. So when I do tell stories of them, they will be consistent. Zombies are bodies. There's mind, body, spirit in my world. That's like the thing that drives everything. So a zombie, its body is dead. It's all three of them are no, it's I forget what it was, but there's like different types of, like a wrath would be like a spirit with no body. I don't know. I forgot. I got to look at my notes, but I literally have notes because I'm a lunatic. Peter Bruegel.
I would say I don't have really ghosts in my universe. I'm not averse, I don't think, to putting something like that in, but you just gave me an idea for a really good basis for ghosts. Would be the fact that it's basically the spirit of a person that's driven insane because they're trying to pursue and grasp on to nothingness because they're fleeing away from the light, basically.
Okay.
That would be a very Lovecraftian probably way of thinking of it.
Unicorn. Who is Peter Bruegel? Why is the name so familiar? It's so freaking familiar. And I know as soon as you tell me, I'm going to be like, yeah, I knew. RJ, I'm a little black-pilled because of the TDS Pope.
Yeah. Just, I can't remember who it was, if it was John Paul, I think it was, or if it was Benedict XVI, but I think it was John Paul basically saying, it might have been Benedict. We have to be prepared and outride the storm of bad bishops that are to come. He said it in the 90s, and that goes all the way to Rome. Unfortunately, at this point, that it doesn't take away from authority, but it takes away from reverence to the person themselves, I guess you might want to say. So I understand, Alessandro.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention names, but I had a person that's super religious, in their non-denominational faith, and he's just we had a friendly discussion off camera about Catholicism, and he's like, the Catholic Church actively discourages you from reading your Bible. I was like, yeah, well, it's not 1300 anymore. I said the Vatican II, that's one of the things where they say if you don't read your scripture, you don't know Christ. They actively encourage you to read scripture now. I said, I read Bibles from when I was a little kid. So don't, I love when people outside of like, I wouldn't dare tell a Protestant how this is what your church tells you, or a Mormon. I don't really know. I still don't even know if Jews believe in heaven or not. You know what I mean? Like everybody has like a weird answer. But my old partner, Ross Goldberg, I mean, go figure how Jewish. I said, what is the Jewish afterlife? And he's like, well, we don't really think about it. He gave me like a really wishy-washy answer, So I'm not going to argue, but I just stated the case. Roman Catholics, you're encouraged to read the Bible. Like you could go with 13th century doctrine, but that was the 13th century. Things are different now. Like, yeah, they wanted the Latin Mass because they want you not to know what's going on. I was like, no, they was just because it was the church in Rome, and Rome was in Latin, and the Roman Catholic Church is very conservative, and the wheels roll slow. And then they added the folk mass, and my father and Chuck Dixon got pissed.
So did J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Tolkien. Yeah, he didn't like the. Yeah.
One of the, I'll tell you right now, though, John, one of the centers of revival of the Latin Mass is New York City right now.
Okay, I got to check it out. I bet it's got to be St. Patrick's Cathedral. They got to have a Latin Mass.
I can't remember. There is a parish. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but there's standing room only if you can get in the door. There's that many people going.
I got to look because I'm not going to Manhattan at all. That going to Manhattan is like you're going to see the Duke of New York, who's a number one. I don't want to go there. So I'll see if there's a Latin Mass anywhere near me. Have you seen the new Nosferatu movie? I thought it was very pretty. I haven't seen any new movie. To be honest, I want to see that movie Demeter about, they filled in the details because Dracula's ship, went through the Mediterranean to England, and when it arrived, everybody was dead. And they just like brushed past that in the Dracula movie. That is a movie in itself. It's that I wanted to see. Is that any good? But Nosferatu movie, the clips that I saw of it looked weird, but I'll see it. I do like a good vampire movie. I do like good horror movies.
There's a fun thing going around Twitter right now. Basically, was Vlad the Impaler a patriot, and should he be considered a hero in history? Because basically he was so cruel because he was trying to stop the Muslim hordes from coming through into Europe.
Well, I mean, I think he was given a bad rep, but we're here talking about him because of him. You know what I mean? Do you think the Muslims were going to be nicer?
Well, the funny thing is, if you know the actual history, he was given as a prince, as a hostage to another, the Muslim caliphate next to his father's kingdom. So he grew up understanding their way of life and enculturating himself into it. So his cruelty comes a lot from where he saw everything going on around him as he was this hostage in a foreign land.
And he had a brother that was, I forget his first name, but he was Vlad the Impaler, and his brother was something the Handsome. So how would you feel like your brother's called the Handsome and you're the Impaler? It's like, well, Vlad the okay looking. Well, I'm tired of this. I'm going to go start impaling people. I wanted better, or Vlad the ugly. You know what I mean? So it's like, I got to do something to earn another nickname. Oh, thank you, Eric. He likes my version of vampires. It's a cool concept and makes sense. So like, and a vampire in my world, they can have more than one body. Like for 12 hours a day, it's light. So they're on the other side of the planet wrecking havoc. You know what I mean? And then the spirit will come here because the spirit can endure daylight because it's just a spirit. You know what I mean? And then it'll come and inhabit this body. And then they have human agents that take care of the body during the day. So like, you know what I mean? For, you know, accountants. Like I have this one story about a female undertaker, and she's constantly keeping the body. But this is not one of her more popular. So she has a lot of free time. She runs a funeral home, and then all of a sudden the body wakes up, and it's, you know, it's been on ice for so long, but it's still damaged. It needs to repair the body. That's what the vampire does. Yeah. Oh, cool. You guys want to? Yeah, I'm gonna send you a picture on Twitter because Luke Stone just did the cover to one of my comics. So I'm gonna download it, put it on Twitter, and I'm gonna, because I can't help but show things off because I have the patience of a child. So I'm going to show a black and white version of an upcoming Heroic Tales comic cover. And let's see, I'll send it to RJ on Twitter. That way I can show it on this. Where's RJ? So talk amongst yourselves, everybody.
Are you sending it to me on chat, or are you sending it through just regular post?
He sent it to me through text message, so I got to put it on Twitter. Yeah, so
okay.
And now I can share it on I'll show it in a second. Let's get up to date on the comments. In my world, the soul passes on to where no one alive can follow. Okay, that makes sense. But what gets left behind is a psychic residue. That's interesting. So it's not, the ghost is not necessarily the spirit. It's like an echo. I like that. That's a cool idea. Pretty clever. Infinite Entertainment. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Yeah. So he was going to be on tomorrow, but he had to cancel. So tomorrow I'm going to have an open slot. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just go to bed early. I've been staying up way too late. That differentiates a spirit, consciousness, and intellect combined, and the immortal human soul that moves on to wherever. Yeah, cool. I do like that. I do like that. Most people who discourage Catholics do not have the base understanding of Catholicism. Yeah, I'm just as guilty because I used to disparage Mormons, but I've come to the conclusion that they are the nicest people I've ever met. So if their faith produces such nice people, they get a pass. As you know, so to all my Mormons, I made my peace with you. You know, we disagree about what we believe with, but you really are the nicest people I've ever met, not Mormons. I'm no Catholic, and I've seen that. Yep. Tony Grigo, the Catholic Church needs to discourage. You see, since Vatican II, it's part of Catholic doctrine that we should be reading our scripture every day. If we don't read scripture, we won't know Christ. That's part of Vatican II. From what was that, 1962?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's old-fashioned stuff. I went to Catholic school, and we read from our Bible every day in Catholic school during religion class, or as we called it scripture. Look at that. There are multiple Latin Mass societies. Most have interactive maps with Mass times, since they often sit churches with Novo Ordo parish. I don't know what Novo Ordo sounds like.
It's the new Mass that you were just talking about. Your father hates, John.
The folk masses. I hated them too. This is the day. This is the day.
Technically, that's not it. Technically, I'm sorry for everybody. I'm going off on a tangent here. Technically, that's not what it is. Technically, these are the people who ran with something and decided to put their own stamp on it, and they have the idiotic things in it. What the Novus Ordo was supposed to be was to incorporate the Latin into it as well, if you go back and read the original documents. But hey, people took it in the wrong direction. That's the thing. But yes, he is completely right. There are different Latin Mass societies. FSPX would probably be your best bet if you want to go with something more traditional.
Learn something new every day. Vlad the Imperialist's cruelty was aimed at the Ottoman soldiers. The Ottoman's cruelty was aimed at civilians. Bingo! There you go. Thank you for encapsulating what I was very awkwardly trying to say. Radu the Handsome. There you go, Tony. I knew Tony. Yeah, Vlad's brother was Radu the Handsome. And then they looked at Vlad. They went, and this guy was like, you know what? I'm gonna impale everybody. I had enough of it. You look at me cross-eyed, I'm impaling you. And they look like, we can't really call him Vlad the Ugly. Can we call him Vlad the Monobrow? No. And he's like, it's just seething. See what happens when you don't get a cool nickname? You end up impaling people. When the Quran was being printed in Europe, Martin Luther was asked to write the preface. He was brutal. Yeah. I've been catching a lot of hell lately, but ladies and gentlemen, look up the origins of Baphomet. And we'll talk about it some other time in the future. But it's really interesting, and its ties to Islam. Okay? Once you realize Baphomet, who Baphomet really is, a lot of things make sense. Oh, we'll look at Dead Man. Dead Man's an interesting character. I remember I had like one of those dollar issues, like 80-page giants. It was a detective comic, but it had Dead Man in the back. And it was my first exposure to him. And I thought he was just such a unique, different superhero. Like he's a superhero that nobody can see. He can't interact with anybody unless he possesses people. So, he's kind of horror, kind of superhero. Really cool.
I think that's a quintessential ghost story for, you want to go back to ghost stories that we were talking about before. Dead Man is pretty much the case, because the only reason he basically has meta knowledge because he can go around as a ghost and see what's going on. And then he can possess somebody to try to fix what's going on because he has all that knowledge. That's basically what it is, over and over again.
Dracula. Yeah. Dracula was Vad's title, not his name. Right. Dracula means son of the dragon, referring to how his dad was a member of the Dracul Order of the Dragon, which presumably had many members. Cool. That's something that I want to research now that you brought it up. The Dracul, are they still around? And I bet you if they are still around, they're like accountants or something like that. Like the Templars turned into bankers. They started out as like badass warrior knights, and they ended up as bankers. Like if there is the Order of the Dracul, it's just like, yeah, well, we'll mend your clothes or something like that. They're not fighting anymore. William the Conqueror wanted a better nickname than William the Bastard. Yeah, right. That's what you're gonna call me. I'm beating everybody. I'm beating. Phyllis the Jerk. She went out and Catherine the Psycho ex-girlfriend. Oh yeah, I'm gonna become the great now. That's it. I'm becoming the best queen of Russia ever. There was a Bible not banned per se, but certain translations or editions of the Bible, particularly Protestant ones, were censored or discouraged by the Catholic Church in Quebec before the 60s. Really? I don't know anything about that. You're partially Canadian. Do you know anything about this?
Well, I can tell you, basically in the early 60s, there was something in Quebec called the Quiet Revolution, where everybody just abandoned the church and religion. So it went from 90% of people being religious to about less than half in the span of a decade.
Wow. Really? In Quebec?
Yeah. So, yeah, he's probably right. To my knowledge, and it's only cursory knowledge, it's basically they were very hard lined, and everybody just said nope, done, and it took less than a decade.
Oh yeah. Do you mind if I show this? This is going to be the cover to.
Oh no! Take this off.
Yeah. So we're going to add that. So I'll put this down. But this is the cover to a story called the Sleeper Agent. So that got, you see, this is.
Wow, I love that.
Who did that? Luke Stone.
Man, that's beautiful.
Yeah, Luke Stone. He's for hire. He's the guy behind Fund My Comic. The guy's multi-talented. He plays instruments. He opened up Fund My Comic. He's drawing for me. Like I said, he did I first noticed that he was an artist when he did Chrome Dog, and unfortunately, I can't move it around. And I was like, this is good. It was a good comic book. And
he did the original concept art for the detective character, did he?
For my
one that's in the bottom, yeah, the guy that's in the bottom.
Yeah. So I was gonna say that's the character you like, Augie Carmichael.
Augie, yes.
That's Augie Carmichael, and then the girl is Brie Cakes. I wonder why.
Yeah, that's magnificent. She's beautiful.
Yeah. So look at that, and he draws Brie Cakes. Just they're good cop, bad cop. So he's always like, he's fat and grumpy and gruff and everything like that. He's a mix between Harvey Bullock and Jim Gordon. And then she's good cop. she's showing up all sexy and beautiful and everything like that. And but anyway, that's Jack Carter, the sleeper agent. So
see, this is what I'm always talking about on X with make comic women beautiful again. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and then I just love how the Incubus is dealing damage to the logo and everything. Yeah, so Luke, he did art for R.J. Williams, the call sign Orion, and I was like, who did your art? And he goes, that's Luke Stone. I was like, that's Luke Scott. Luke Stone was good. He leveled up. Like, look at this now. Like, if he did art full time, like he's a pastor, he's a musician, he's doing this, he's doing that. I don't even know what else. But if he did art full time, he'll be on John Byrne's level in a year or two.
Oh yeah, and his use of the shadow here, I mean, it looks like the bottom half of it is what he concentrated on for the shadow, but very, very technically well done.
Yeah, I really, because when I work with somebody, he's been drawing this, you know what I mean, and he could do like almost a page a day if he's not distracted. Like a couple of weeks ago, he had nothing on his schedule, so he was banging out a page a day, and then he was like apologizing to me. I was like, what? You know, so this will probably be in Heroic Tales 3 because I think he's got 2 more pages to do and he's done. You know, so I have a bunch of artists doing stories, and whoever's done first, you know, first come first serve kind of thing. Yeah, I really like this. I like the story too. So Jack Carter, I picked the name Jack Carter to, you know, because John Carter, Warlord of Mars, like he just laid down and flew to Mars, and then Randolph Carter from H.P. Lovecraft was a dreamer. So in my world, he's somehow connected to John Carter and Randolph Carter. So Jack Carter, the sleeper agent. And then Dave Brink over at Genuine Comics, he has a character called is it Sleeper Agent or is it just the Sleeper? I forget. But I was like, oh man, I'm already like halfway through a comic. And he's like, don't worry, they're completely different, you know, so just the same name. What was this comment? The influence of the Index Liborium Prohibitorum, the list of prohibited books was strong. Is that continuing? Okay.
Yeah, that's he's talking about the banned books, the list of banned books, which is basically just in case. Yeah, I make no bones about this fact whatsoever. But the Inquisition still exists, by the way. They're just under a different name, and they existed for a long time, and it was under what they basically had a list of banned books up until, again, it was about Vatican II. I think they discontinued the list of banned books in the 1960s. And so it's basically is the fact that there's so many books and they can't keep track of every last book anymore. And people have so much access to it. So it became redundant, but yeah, that would be, I can see where he's coming from. If that was what happened in Quebec City, I don't know that is exactly what happened, but it's very plausible.
I had no idea. So Alan Moore had John Carter, Randolph Carter related in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Oh man, see, I read a bunch of them and then I stopped, and now I can't find them. I think I'm like 3 or 4 graphic collections away. And then didn't his daughter take over or something? I know there's one about like all the girls. So I gotta find them. When I moved, I put a bunch of trade paperbacks in a box. And I don't know where that box is, but yeah, I love the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Some of the art choices I thought were weird. So what else? You want to bring up anything else? Bring up more?
Don't have anything to bring up right at the moment, but I'll take a quick look. What you tell me, John? What is your let's say favorite, say Magic comic run? I forgot about Magic.
The book you're thinking of is Lost Girls, which Moore wrote with his wife doing the art. No, there's a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I know this because it's one of the few that I could find, and it has Captain Nemo's daughter on the cover. But I also have the Lost Girls. It's still the shrink wrap. I never read it. And people are like, don't ever read it, which makes me want to read it even more. I'm one of those people. You tell me, like, you don't want to go to that neighborhood. I'm like, well, I guess I know what I'm doing tomorrow. If it's not British comics, if it ain't weird art choices, you're absolutely right about that. That to be honest, the British comic book art, like what's his name, something, the Nemesis the Warlock, that put me off British comics for a long time, but I've gotten over it. Yeah, the Nemo books. There you go. Yeah, books of I really like these books. I really like these books. And it's really weird because I just recently reread them. When I say recently, like 2 years ago. I don't know what's going on, and this is going to sound bad for these comics, but I always forget what happened. Like I read these books, that I reread them again, and then 2 years ago I reread the whole series. Every time I read it, it's like reading it for the first time. So people will be like, "Oh, that's a bad," but I do like it. I like it a lot, actually. I like this, the Dreaming, all of these weird Vertigo. I'm surprised you like this. It's Vertigo. You didn't really like.
No, I didn't like much of Vertigo, and I wasn't really much into this. But the original graphic novels that came out, that I found very interesting because it was tying together a lot of different supernatural characters for DC.
Yeah, Luke is just asking me if I like the cover.
Tell him we all like the cover. Tell him we all like the.
and he asked me if he could show it tomorrow on his Nerd Bacon show. So I was like, too late. We already showed it. I'm so bad like that. I have a couple of art pieces. I'm like building a theme art book, and I'm hiring artists to do pages. And I showed one of the pages, and that artist was like, "Oh, really? You gave it up already? You got to have some willpower." So I deleted it. I got shamed.
That's why I always try to zoom in on like one or two panels when I show you the art from Page Blue, because I'm the same way. It's like somebody's got to see this page, but I can't show the whole thing.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Like Oscar's been banging out because Renzo's we're trying to do King Fu, the Christmas special, as fast as possible. So Oscar and Renzo are just burning out pages. So rather than give away the pages, I'm zooming in like on a panel. You know what I mean? They're so good. They've gotten so much better. Such a good team. Yeah, I like these books. So as far as Magic, you mentioned the second volume of Doctor Strange from the 70s. Those early, I think, first 12 or so issues drawn by Frank Bruner. Oh my God, those are so good. So good. And then I think Gene Colan took over after him. Yeah, I love Gene Colan, but I like when Gene Colan does like Daredevil, like what he does street level, realistic, even Dracula.
Yeah, I think Tomb of Dracula was his best work, if you ask me.
Yeah, Tomb of Dracula, but something about that crazy mystical world, Frank Bruner did it so good. So
it's because he tends, see, he's the exception to the rule. I really hate, let's say, modern colors where things all blend together, but he did it in a very special way with the pencils, not with the color. He tended to blend something together with its surroundings, and then you never knew where one started and the other stopped, especially in Tomb of Dracula, where he turns into mist and all these kind of different forms that he has. He did that spectacularly well.
Yeah. I know it's blasphemy to say it, but I didn't like when Gene Colan did like regular superheroes, like like if he did Fantastic Four. I don't know if he did Fantastic Four, but you know what I mean? Like, or Spider-Man, but for Daredevil and Dracula, he was one of my favorites.
Yeah, when he did Avengers, that was not part of my favorite run, to say the least.
Something's telling me he did the Punisher, but like when you have a hint of a memory, I have a hint of a memory of doing the Punisher, but that I think would be perfect. Him doing the Punisher, he's so or war comics or westerns. Of course, he did westerns. What am I, nuts?
Yeah, war comics would work really well with what he does.
I'm gonna. Yeah, I just showed. It. I'm just letting him know. Showed it live now, and they loved it. Yeah. So hire Luke Stone. He's a great artist. He's a lot of fun. He's super patient because I'm a nitpick. I'm a pain in the neck. And when he was drawing stuff, I was like, no, that's not the way the world works. And you know, and then like 5 minutes later, he's like, well, it wasn't in the script, John. If you want me to draw like that, you got, and he's absolutely right. And he changed a major thing, and he, you know, he's still working with me. So maybe he cursed me out in 5 minutes, got it out of his system, but he was right. I didn't put it in the script. Like sometimes, like I realize now, especially when working with like Renzo, who's, you know, English is his second language, I've learned that I have to make it clear what I want. You know, and Renzo will ask me like, it's not really clear. What do you want? I'm like, well, if in that particular case, you could draw whatever you want. It's not that important. But he knows I'm a pest, and he's a professional. He doesn't want to draw something twice, or, you know, or 3 times, because he's making money putting out pages. If he's drawn it 3 times, that he really only made a third of the money. So yeah. So if you are working with an artist, anybody watching, make sure you choose, like, your dialogue is one thing, but the words to your artist, choose the correct words. Be as specific and as clear as possible. Your artist will appreciate it. Yeah, these covers are so good. That was a good story. I felt bad. Tommy Hunter was traveling with this girl, and he liked this girl, and the supernatural being was coaching him on how to flirt with the real human, but she loved him, you know. So it was like a little like oh sweet heartache kind of thing. It was good story. Yeah, these were I think Mike Kaluta did the covers for a long time, and then Charlie Vest did the covers for a long time. Really great covers. The art inside was okay. Different artist. It was a little bit of bait and switch. I think a lot of supernatural stories are ruined by authors who feel the need to explain and categorize everything. Guilty. Most of my favorites are some kind of unsolved mystery. Yeah, I'm trying to get better. I feel though, like I have rules for my supernatural monsters. I have rules to how superpowers work, but I'm not going to tell you those rules. But I think you could figure them out if I'm consistent. You know what I mean?
That's funny because I used to think the same way, and after putting the first book out there, and I thought there was enough teasers in it to let people figure it out for themselves, and obviously I was wrong. So I'm thinking to myself, with a lot of, what I'm doing now with especially Fade to Blue, it's I have this in my head how it works. I have the rules down, and I'm never going to explain the rules because it'll keep people guessing, and I think that'll work to my advantage.
Yeah, there's a board game. I can't remember the board game, but it comes with all of these weird pieces, and you got to put the weird pieces out in a certain way, and through logic, the other players have to guess the rules. I hate it. I'm terrible at this game, but you know what I mean? But that's what you just get. Like you have the rules in your head, and you put it in your story, and your readers, like if somebody else was to take over your comic and write your comic and be like, wait a minute, this, you know, Thomas Valiant doesn't have flame powers. This is wrong. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't let that go, but I'm just like, there's a rule. There's rules within a universe, and it's okay to have craziness and stuff, but what the consistency makes it work. You know, like in Tolkien, the magic system is soft. It kind of makes sense. You know, the elves do this. Now, all of a sudden, like, which drives me nuts in the Hobbit movie, elves and dwarves don't find each other attractive. Matter of fact, the elven word for dwarves, I forget that. I can't say it in Elven. I don't remember, but it translates to a stunted being. And they thought they were animals and hunted them almost into extinction. That's one of the reasons why the dwarves and the humans hated each other, is the elves didn't recognize them as sentient human creatures. You know, so that movie violates the laws of Tolkien. I'm ranting now. I'm mean mad mead. In my world, the Abrahamic God is the real deal, while the others are immortal superhuman pretenders. Still not going to get preachy with it. Yeah, kind of like in Tolkien's world, you have Iluvatar, which is basically gold, and then the Valar, God, I said gold, which is God, and then the Valar are like Greek gods, but they all answer to Iluvatar. I can't speak anymore. The story does not to explain everything, but it should resolve things satisfactorily. Absolutely. continuity editors, something that is rarely used today, but we need them. Yeah, I'm trying to be super strict about my continuity, and I'm glad I did a live reading of my issue number 1, and there was an error in it that I have to live with. Like, the patriarch's oldest son should be named Paul, but in the first draft he was James Jr. So I have to keep it James Jr., even though I changed it. And now I'm like, I got to live with that. And the funny thing is, why wasn't he named Paul? And I came up with a cool story based on a continuity error. So you don't know it's a continuity. I know it's a continuity error, but is it really a continuity error if it's in the comic book and then it'll always be JJ, his oldest son?
It's funny, John. I don't know if I told you this before or not, but there's a little quirk we have in our family. It's a variation of Scottish naming, which basically use the same names over and over again. But within our family, oldest gets named the same name as the father, and except for the middle name, and then they're called the middle name, not the first name. Which was weird for my brother when he went to the oldest brother, when he went to the military, because everybody was calling him by his actual given name, and he didn't never respond to it for the first couple of weeks until they pounded it into his head because no one ever called him by his first name, which is the same name as my father.
It's funny because one of my childhood friends, he also makes comics with me. His father's Ernie. And hey, Ernie, how you doing? Ernie. And then he didn't know. I forget why. I think he had to get a passport as an adult. That his name was really Joseph. Ernie was his middle name, but all of his brothers' names were Joseph. So they went by their middle names. So his whole life he didn't know that his name was Joseph. How weird is that?
It's very much a Scottish thing. There's an actual system whereby
French and Scottish. So there you go.
Yeah.
I love that Justice League of America cover. I love that. Yeah.
Imagine punching Superman in the face and having him reel backwards. There you go.
Yeah. Yep. Dr. Fate. Maybe he used his magic glove. Also, my world, the Death Guards are teleporters who own the monopoly on interstellar travel and are why other worlds would happen. There you go. Cool. That see, you got a whole world there. And, take your time and let us learn the characters first, because we won't care about your world. This is the same advice other people gave me. Nobody's going to care about your world if they don't care about the characters. So give us a character that we like. Give us interactions with other characters. Let us like all of these people. So, I always like that Johnny Thunders and the Thunderbolt.
Johnny Thunder was supposed to be a supernatural character. Was he not?
Yeah, he has a genie. He's the 7th son of a 7th son, and so he was gifted a genie by whatever. And the genie will do whatever. It could do anything. It has like godlike omnipotence, but it's limited by only doing what its host tells it to do. And Johnny Thunders is a moron. So that's the joke. You know what I mean? So the genie's like frustrated. Like he could basically say, kill all evil on earth, or make everybody happy or whatever. But Johnny Thunders is a dope. So it's kind of like a limited premise,
Which is funny because I remember Johnny Thunder was probably, if I remember correctly, in the last issues of Justice League that were done by George Perez, which means that he was in the continuity for Justice League for a long time.
Yeah, well, he was in the Justice Society. He's been around since the 40s. Yeah, I like. And then in the late 80s, they had a girl, Johnny Thunders. Johnny with an I, and she was a private detective. And then in the I think the late 90s, early zeros, they had like a black kid, and he had a pen because the Thunderbolt had to be trapped in some sort of liquid or whatever. So it was trapped in the ink of a pen. I didn't buy. I thought that was the weakest one. A pen. Come up with something better than that. Well, for a prologue, I considered having my main hero be introduced by helping a girl being harassed, karate chopping the other guy, and karate chop. I just whenever I hear the word karate chop, I always go instantly back to like second grade when we were obsessed with karate. I'm gonna give you a karate chop if you don't, whatever. Don't you touch my pen? I'll give you a karate chop. Only for the girl to run away ungrateful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I said, I'll read your script when you write it. Look at these. A lot of pink. Jeez. A lot of pink and purple. It's almost too much.
That's Doctor Strange for you, or 90s Doctor Strange, I guess.
Yeah, I have most of these. Yeah, I think I'm missing a few issues.
I love the cover for number 28.
Yeah, yeah. I always, when I'm going through my comics, I always stop and look at that. Yeah, I love Ghost Rider. Such a fun character.
This was getting into
by night. Yeah.
I think yeah. Who is this artist off the top of my head? Jason, Jackson Bruce. Is it Jackson Sweet?
Is it Bruce Geis? What does it say? I can't read it. What?
I don't know.
Jackson.
I'm not sure if that's the artist or not.
Yeah.
But he did a lot of 90s Doctor Strange and things like that.
Yeah. I think it's Butch Geis. He went by Jackson for a while, then he went by Butch. And right now, if you're interested in his art, is phenomenal art. Go to Fund My Comic and get Storming Paradise by Chuck Dixon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's Chuck Dixon doing what if we didn't drop the bombs and invaded Japan? So it's
right.
Like,
you're telling me about that.
Yeah, it's really good.
Frankenstein. Doctor Strange and Frankenstein. This is when they were starting to reach for topics, I think. I really like the first run. Let's go back to Daughter of Mephisto. That was pretty good.
Oh, that's a great cover. That's really creepy.
That was one of the things. I always found that Marvel could never do magic correctly. They always, but it depends on what your version of magic is. And so it works out in a Marvel way. But magic always tended to end up just being superpowers of a different sort, or superpowers that weren't affected by X, Y, or Z. And so,
right. It's funny because I'm reading the Dresden Files. If you see that crazy person that was banging on that guy's door, he called himself Harry Dresden.
Yeah,
those books are. But it's funny because when I talk with my friends, I'm like, Harry Dresden is a comic book superhero wizard. Like he's like a Doctor Strange wizard. Because he could basically do whatever is needed at the time. It makes sense within the rules that Jim Butcher created for his world. But I still think like my character, the metaphysician, he's a Dungeons and Dragons wizard. He has spells prepared, reagents, stuff like that. So you're going to see like familiar spells. Like I'm toying with the idea that when I debut him, I might even have like a page of his spell book. Like every story with the metaphysician, just like a page, so you'll see like a couple of his spells and stuff like that.
It's funny, John. There was so I was going through some D&D stuff online and looking through some really interesting art, and because I do post a lot of, just anybody wants to know, I do post D&D stuff and Conan the Barbarian and comic stuff and all that on X. But one of the really interesting pictures that I ran across was a black and white of, it's basically in a dungeon, and you have a shot from up in the ceiling, and you see basically a ghoul, like a ghost kind of thing, waiting on the other side of the door in a hallway, because he's basically guarding the thing, but he just sits there and waits. Then you got two dead knights or fighters, and then you got your magic user who's behind the other wall and trying to figure out, like he's just desperate because he's the only one left of his party. He's trying to figure out how in the world he's going to get around this thing that just killed his entire party. And it's a really, really interesting piece of art.
If you can find it, that sounds cool. Post it or send it. What is this comment? I think Lucero once joked that the amount of evil in a person reflects their body temperature, gender depending. Guys,
Gender depending. Rex, that was funny. It reminds me of it's like, what is it? The old cartoons where you could put rivets on people's heads, and they would turn red hot, and then you could use them, right?
I do. That is that. I know I have that issue, but I don't think I read that one. What number is that?
Number 6.
Oh yeah, so that's like a third series, I think.
It says 1988, so
Okay. Yeah, because okay, Doctor Strange, and then there was another series that was Sorcerer Supreme. Yeah, that looks so good. I gotta look to see if I have that. I don't. It doesn't look familiar.
yeah, all these covers are jumbled up, so you were going backwards. Yeah, that number 5 cover is amazing too, which is the one on the left here. We are going backwards down to 1. I remember, yeah, because number 1 was not the best cover in the world. It was just Doctor Strange standing there.
Oh yeah, okay. So this is number 5 of Sorcerer Supreme. They added the title Sorcerer Supreme like around issue 6 or 7. Like you see 18, it says the Sorcerer Supreme.
Right,
So-
right.
So this is the third one. For whatever reason, the Sorcerer Supreme was left off that Mephisto one. Yeah, I don't think I have this series.
I can't believe that's 1988. I remember it as being a 90s book.
Yeah. The Doctor Strange, I think it got canceled and then immediately restarted with this. Yeah, the original one was called Doctor Strange, Master of the Mist. Well, the original one was just called Doctor Strange. Then it was Strange Tales, and then it was Doctor Strange, Master of the Mystic Arts, and then Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah, it was Master of the Mystic Arts where I got into Doctor Strange. Which again, I don't think that's one of the things. It's really funny because I remember people at the first of my channel sending me stuff about how Marvel tries to do current day magic, and it's basically them being cheerleaders for, Wicca or something like that, modern day witches and stuff. And you see it in Archie and the Archie show and the Archie books and Sabrina the Teenage Witch they have it now and all these kinds of things. And it's like, okay, you're actually trying to be an apologist for almost a religious sect at this point, not tell a fantastical story. So that's where Marvel is currently going with magic.
Yeah.
Was, well, a couple of years ago anyways. I haven't picked up too many Marvel books in the last little while. Rex says, a friend told me someone asked Steve Ditko what drugs he was on when he illustrated Doctor Strange, and Ditko said, that's just how my imagination works. It's funny because a lot of I would say the template for Doctor Strange and the worlds that surround Doctor Strange are Steve Ditko.
Yeah, it's funny. The Steve Ditko story. He was on a call. They were reading Doctor Strange, and somebody asked him about Doctor Strange, and they were like, "Oh, so what drugs are you taking?" And he was infuriated. He goes, "I don't need to be. This is pure imagination. If you need drugs to think of stuff, that's a weakness." And the college people, they were really sad to have met the real Steve Ditko because he was very conservative. And then after he left Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, he did Mr. A, which horrified the college campus kids. He shoots the woman, doesn't care. Let's the criminal. He shoots the criminals, lets them burn to death in the building. He's like, why should I save them? This is the situation they created. Why should I take away their free will? They wanted to be here. I'll save you. You're an innocent victim. Horrified people. Arion, Lord of Atlantis, also had magic and supernatural. Yeah, that was DC. That was a good series. I recommend, if anybody, because they're dirt cheap, they're like $1 an issue, get Arak, Son of Thunder. It's by Roy Thomas and Ernie Colin, and it's an Indian who is an American Indian whose father is the storm god for whatever tribe he's from, and then he gets captured to be a slave as a kid, but then the slavers, the storm god overturns their boat, and he's raised by Vikings. So he's an American Indian demigod raised by Vikings, fighting as a mercenary in Constantinople. It's a great comic. I recommend it.
Yeah, John's absolutely right, though. I think the last place I saw those books was in like
$1 bins, right?
bin. It wasn't even $1 bin. It was like coverless books and just thrown on the floor books that they wanted to get rid of. Unfortunately, that's where you find a lot of good comics these days.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I can't wait for the speculators to move on so I can get comics that I want for cheaper. I'm never going to sell them. And I don't have any kids, so whoever comes into this house to defumigate it for my maggot-ridden corpse is going to steal all my comics.
Which is funny because the same thing happens to I'm waiting for that time as well, John. But there's the funny thing for me.
You got kids.
Yeah, the funny thing. No, I mean for the I'm waiting for the speculators to go away so we can buy good comics at a decent price. But it's what I do when I go into bookstores. I always go to the discount rack first for a bookstore, because all of the books that no one else will buy and is on the discount rack because no one will buy it is my bread and butter and things I want to read.
Yeah. I just bought like this. It's like $3. An original first printing of a Tarzan. It's really good condition. You go into a bookstore, you can find a lot of sweet stuff. I found in Albuquerque for $2 a hardcover To Kill a Mockingbird, first printing, and when I opened it up, it started to make that noise, and I quickly closed it. It's funny because I used to love To Kill a Mockingbird, and now I'm just like, it's liberal garbage. Technically speaking, the commandment "do not murder" premeditated and unlawful killing of another person. Yeah. Murder is a legal term. We always forget that. Murder is a legal term. All killing by another person is homicide. So whenever they say, "Oh, the death was a homicide," they're like, you see, no, that just means another person killed this person. Murder is the term for an illegal homicide. But if you kill somebody in self-defense, that's not murder. It's still homicide, but it's not murder. Yeah, so the commandment do not murder, some people argue it was like, do not murder, meaning illegal kill. Other people is like, no, do not kill like our own. We could still, like the ancient Hebrews could still kill Canaanites. They're not people, kind of thing. I don't know. I'm not an ancient Bible scholar. My wife just got a book, RJ, you might like. It's all the words in the Bible, and then so it'll say like father, and then it'll have the Greek and the Aramaic and the Hebrew, and it'll explain all the connotations of this. So she's like, I'm reading this Bible and I'm listening to stuff, but I don't really know the actual words. This is the King James version. This is this. She started to notice because she has all these different that some of the lines completely different based on the translation. So she's like, I want to get the original. I was so proud of her when she did that. I wish she knew that book existed. I would have bought it years ago.
Yeah, it's probably language concordance of the Bible.
I think that's it, something like that. John, what's your opinion on the design for the Ultimate Penguin and 2? Somebody asked me last week, and I could care less. I don't even know. If anybody's got a picture, send them to me on Twitter, and I'll bring them up here. But I don't know what they look like. I'm just not interested. And again, I have two minds of the Absolute series. I'm glad that it's selling because I want comic book stores to stay in business and I want them to make money. So I'm glad there's something bringing people to comic book stores to sell. I just am not interested in the Absolute Batman. I found the entire Gulag Archipelago volumes hardcover and clearance bin for $4. It was all right, but longest. Yeah, I went to a comic book. I told the story many times. I went to a comic book store, and they were converting into just like a Magic the Gathering store. So they were literally just getting rid of all of their back issues. They had long boxes, everything for $1 just to get rid of them. And I spent hours just climbing over the box. I found almost every issue of the original Thunder Agents, $1 a piece, including number 1. I think I was missing like 3 that I had to pay like, whatever prices for. But oh man, and near mint condition. These were awesome. I went home. I went back the next day because I couldn't possibly carry all these comics. That was great. And then the store went out of business because, that's a hard thing. Oh, okay. Double comments. I thought I was going crazy. Also, the correct translation of another commandment is don't carry the Lord's name in vain, meaning don't claim you're acting on God's behalf when you're really looking for your own purpose. Oh, wow. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I got to check that out.
I think we scrolled down to the end of the comments, and I think
I got to go to bed. It's 9:00. I'm going to eat my dinner and then go to bed. I'm back at my way early schedule. So anything you want to say, RJ? I know I talked.
No, just let everybody know. Once again, Fund My Comic now has Crown the Destroyer up. If you just want to order the book itself, you can do so. We're just wrapping up a lot of things to finish the book, and so if anybody didn't get to, we'll call this the second chance campaign, and didn't get the first campaign, which they'll be fulfilled. Don't you worry. If you ordered it before, it will be fulfilled. But for anybody who missed it, the second chance is up there. Link is in the description of my video, and John's books that are up in Fund My Comic are also in the description of my video.
Yep. And you're almost done. What do you got? Like 4 more pages left? 5 more pages or something like that?
Of the line art, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't wait. It looks so good. The art looks so good. The writing might be okay, but the art.
Agreed.
Yeah. But thanks a lot, everybody. Tomorrow, I don't know if I'm going to stream. My guest, I think he had a work-related thing. He's apologetic, but that's fine. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just do something for the moment. But we'll see. Friday on my channel, we're going to be doing Indiana Jones versus what's his name? Alan Quartermain. So that'll be interesting. All right. RJ, anything you want to plug? You got your Saturday sermons?
Yeah, my Saturday videos are going up. Besides John, you can find me besides on John's channel with the comic book team up. You can find me on X. I just post a lot of beautiful art and a couple of things from my own stuff every once in a while. But
right on X, he's RJ of the Island.
Right.
It's not the Fourth Age. RJ of the Island.
I should change that to the Fourth Age. I think I changed it away from the Fourth Age to RJ of the Island just to so I could post some other things personal, a little looser than just my own stuff, right?
So if you're watching on RJ's channel, my channel is John's Longbox. If you're watching on my channel, RJ's channel is the Fourth Age. Like, subscribe, and all of that crazy YouTube stuff. And we'll see you guys. Thanks a lot. It's a lot of fun.
See y'all later.
I love an active chat. Thank you so much, everybody. And we will say goodbye, kids.